I've condensed a 4-hour half-day workshop into 40 minutes.
Magic.
And we're running late already.
Magic.
I'm also told I probably can't jump around, so normally I've got sort of tiger legs, and I kind of do this. So I'm going to try and keep it. So what I'm going to do, regretfully, is I am going to hopefully put the burden of responsibility onto you guys, and I am going to broadcast at pace, hopefully, so we've got some time for some questions at the end. So I'm just going to ask a question. Is there anybody in the room here who has heard of something called design thinking? Yes? 1, 2, 2.5. That's the general principle of what we're going to cover, but I'm hopefully going to take you on a little journey. So we're just going to whiz through as fast as possible. The question is it going to whiz? Right. I'll be slightly over here then. You can take a picture of the previous slide, but I do need to move quickly.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. So, as Sean said, I have been doing this for a very long time. 16 years. I've set my business up in 2001. I have been running creative sessions for companies, everything from branding, for companies doing sort of Athens Olympics in 2004. Can't mention their brand name, but they're on my website. And all the way to BP, the NHS, and companies like that. So sometimes more successfully than others, and the general thrust of my talk is to try and enthuse and inspire people to be more creative. I use the phrase sort of discover creativity, expect results. So I recently did a talk, when I say recently, it was probably about a year ago now, for the EU on e-leadership, and my concern with the e-leadership agenda was that it was all about getting a job. And quite a few of the questions I've heard over this today was all about how do I get a job, how do I get a job. But the IT industry, as hopefully you have been experiencing from the other seminars, is all about falling apart and disruption and change. The languages that you've seen put up on the screens today will not be around in 5 to 7 to 10 years' time. The technologies that you're using will not be around in 5 to 7 to 10 years' time. Right. That's good. So the challenge is that when we talk about e-leadership and we talk about people getting jobs in IT, what I want to do is try and inspire you that having a job is not enough, the mindset is not enough, eternal learning is what we're about, and it will go wrong, it will break, and you will need to have the mental resilience and capacity to work your way through those problems. So, I need to keep pressing my button, so I will need to keep moving over to here. We've talked about those, so I'm going to skip the slide. Basically, you've got artificial intelligence and all sorts coming on board, and the mission is to change your mindset, so from impossible to possible, and from unable to able. And it is a mindset and a culture that you need to embrace. So, the main principle is to try and realign the brains, inspire some kind of change in thinking in terms of how you also interact with other people, to inspire them to embrace creativity, because without that, you're kind of fighting an uphill battle. There's lots of people, they go to school, they come out of school, they go to college, they come out of college. I did learning, didn't I? Learning was done to me, and now I don't need to. So my challenge is, what I normally do now, and I thought I'd keep the slide in, is I get everybody to draw somebody in the room, okay? So, just a show of hands, who finds the idea of drawing, art, and generally doing anything which requires you to, paint, fairly scary? Anyone? Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Anyone just love creative drawing and all those sort of things? So, yeah, man at the back. So, the challenge is that conceptually we think of people who can write poetry, songs, draw and all those things as being creatives. But actually, this is not what we're aspiring to, hopefully. Very carefully placed banner there, by the way. So being arty is not what I'm talking about today. The result of what I do a lot in my business turns out into being graphical work to explain complex things. but actually it's about problem solving and creating ideas. So the theoretical name for this is called design thinking. So that implies that you are then thinking like a designer. And we've spoken quite a lot today, a couple of people have mentioned the word customer, and if you're not thinking about your customer, then you're not delivering. And we also do some sessions around a thing called value propositions, which if anybody are thinking about starting up your own business, your value proposition is what makes you stand out from the crowd, a unique value proposition. And one of the things with that is that it is a proposition of value. So many businesses sit around thinking what their value proposition is, and what they're doing is they're looking internally and going, oh, well, we're really good at this, and we're really good at that, and we're really good at this. Well, if none of those things have any value to the customer, you've just wasted your time. So the mission of a designer, a true designer, when you're designing new products, new services, a website, anything that you are designing, your customer always comes first. So we're going to talk about that. And it was invented really by a couple of guys at an organisation called IDEO. So I didn't make this stuff up. It's all open information. There's D-School, which is online. There's huge amounts of resources, all free. Nothing that I'm going to share with you that isn't out there in the open world. The problem is that a lot of people in the UK aren't using it. So IDEO is a design organisation. Just to give you some idea about the credibility behind it, ranked as one of the most innovative companies in the world, loads of awards, tons of awards, basically considered the absolute godfathers of this methodology and the thinking behind it.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Can you contact so I can say it to me? D-School?
D-School, design school from Stanford. I'm going to also, when I meet people in business, a lot of the time I have to persuade them that this is a good thing to do. They think this is fluffy stuff that is for wacky marketing and creative types, and I don't need to do this stuff. But actually, if you listen to All Basic Consultancy, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. It's the same thing. Begin with understanding what your customers want and all those things. These are some numbers. I'm not going to go, I've got about 3 slides of these, I'll skip through them. But basically, the DMI Design Value Index in 2014 shows that over the 10 years that they monitored it, design-led companies maintained a significant stock market advantage, outperforming the Standard & Poor's market by 228%. So if we're using this mechanism, and there's a whole bunch of other people on there who are, it really does hit the bottom line, and successful companies use design thinking. So, as always, I get somebody who says, well, I don't see Apple on there. Where's Apple? They're known for being designers, great design thinking. They don't do design thinking. Now that Steve Jobs is gone, they don't do very much. But, in my personal opinion, actually Apple aspire for disruption. So we're going to touch on that in a while. But disruption is not the same as design thinking. Design thinking is based on the Japanese Toyota model of Kaizen, which is the continuous improvement. So you're continually polishing, improving, which requires continuous ideas, improving on ideas, continuously understanding your customer better and improving on them. It doesn't say break it, smash it, and come up with something new. So, micro recap, it's not about art or drama or music stuff, although that's very nice. It's about better problem solving. It's proven, it's researched, it's backed up by one of the leading universities in the world, and it's normally about actually maneuvering yourself forward in creativity and innovation rather than disruption. So, here's a man who's overquoted. Whether he actually said this, I don't know, but I think this is a legitimate one. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. And I'm going to demonstrate this because this is kind of key. It opens the door to go, oh yeah, I do solve problems. I've solved problems all my life. I come up with new ideas all the time. How am I doing that? So there's also a guy here who is very cheesy and American and possibly, has anyone heard of T. Harv Eker? Anyone in the room? Someone has. Wow, well done, sir. Well done. Okay, so T. Harv Eker is a motivational guy. He set up his business many, many moons ago as a fitness business, sold it to Heinz, the baked beans people, for a few $1 million. And he now runs around sort of being a bit of a sort of self-help guru. However, he's got some great content. I would say it's a fairly low level on some levels, but it's great content, and he does the whole millionaire mindset routine. The millionaire mind is that a millionaire thinks in terms of big money, and a poor person thinks in terms of small money. So, for example, if you probably had £1 million given to you, you might think that's a lot of money. If Bill Gates got £1 million given to him, it's not huge. So his mind is changed. His mind is in a different state. So I'm going to demonstrate. Did anybody have these little toys when they were kids? Yeah, great. I'm really pleased. I'm really pleased. I did a thing at a school, and they were all under 16, and they just looked at me like I was a moron. So I had an extra question which I thought I'd ask as well today, which is, who cheated by moving them round just one, right? Did anyone cheat? No? Yeah? Brilliant. I cheated all the time. I wanted to look clever. So these are great, and as a child, you very rapidly, you get told what to do, and you work out how to do it, then you work out how to cheat, and then you work out how to look clever. So this is a classic example of a basic challenge which you're provided with, which you now look at, now that you've increased your mindset, and you go, that's really easy. This would not occupy your brain for very long whatsoever. And then what happened was, somebody gave you a puzzle for Christmas or something dull like that, and you kind of did that and pretended to be interested, and you didn't challenge your brain for much longer, which means it ended up in the cupboard, just sort of thrown there. Done. You've done it, so it doesn't change your brain. Then somebody says, oh yes, well they did that puzzle last Christmas, we'll give them a bigger one this one. So what happens is you get given this bigger puzzle, and you maybe do it if you can be bothered. And then someone goes, well they really love puzzles, and they give you one of these and you just go, and who actually ever did a Rubik's Cube? Is there anybody in the room? John, we know you did, because you're special, but who actually did a Rubik's Cube, really genuinely? Blimey, 4 of 5 of you, 6, you did it properly.
And it's only seconds.
7 seconds?
7 seconds.
Blimey, that's incredible. So there comes a point with your problem, with your creative ideas that you need to come up with, and either you embrace the challenge, or you go, and throw it and put it to one side. So we've all done this, and I was talking to somebody earlier, I was boring somebody earlier. You have a challenge and you're only doing one thing. You're either moving away from pain, or you're moving towards pleasure or gain. The gain that you get from doing this, from solving your problem, often is not big enough. Hence, lots of organisations leave loads of problems unsolved, because they just can't be bothered to do it. There's too much effort, it's too much grief, it's too much management meetings, it's just not big enough to bother. Or they know that if they do that and run to their dad and go, woo, I've done it, it'll be like, whatever. So no personal experience there whatsoever. So the point is that problems and coming up with ideas is actually within us to solve. It's a challenge within organisations that if you find a problem and then you take it to your peers and they're not interested, if it's something annoys you and you go, this really frustrates me, let's do something about it. You've got apathy, you've got nothing happening. So what happens is problems don't get solved. Part of the challenge in solving problems is collaborating with your peers in order to persuade other people to help you solve those problems with you. Okay, I can't remember what the slide is. So here's a very challenging situation. We have a desire to solve it. That's really, really important. We work out what to do. We learn. And then the problem is no longer as much of a problem. All through your life, you suddenly realise you can do all sorts of things that are easy. And even now, if you talk to somebody and they're doing fractions or basic fractions or distance equals speed times time or something, you think, oh, this is easy. How can you not get this? This is basic maths, times tables, But this guy flunked out of school, at 15, and admittedly he was lucky to have some wealthy parents to prop him up. But he's solved bigger problems than you or I, and for a lot more people. So the reality is that success comes through solving problems for people, adding value to their lives, and the key is for very, 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 very many people. So he's doing all right, and he didn't even get any O-levels, and he's got very good at solving problems. And one of the ways he's done that is by solving problems with other people. He's very good at whatever. So, for Richard Branson, starting building and running a business is a walk in the park. For many other people, it's a constant battle just to pay the bills, to pay the salaries. So, the skill of the future that I would say to you, and I'm basing this on the fact that you have been to some of the other seminars which have told you about the fact that everything is going to change. Your high streets will change, your family unit will change, your housing will change, your energy usage will change, your career will change, everything is going to change. So you can't just sit there and go, well, I learnt it, it's all going to be all right. The skill, the very talent in the future is not going to be definable. The talent in the future that has the highest value, I believe, personally, is able to take a completely unknown situation and be able to resolve it. I'll give you an example. If you were a highly trained firefighter, years of firefighting, fire has a certain character, has a certain way of behaving. You get used to that, you learn it, you go through your training, all those things. What I would suggest to you is that if you choose a career in IT, the fire is always going to change character. One moment it's going to burn this way, one moment it's going to burn that way, one moment it's going to burn 4 stories high, one moment it'll smoulder. How on earth do you learn how to fight something which is continually morphing into something different? And the challenge with that is it's a mindset in order to get you into the ability to go, I can do this, I've done this before, I need to really learn quickly. I need to assess the situation fast, and I need to completely realign the way I do everything. I mean, I need to completely realign my career choices, my software I've chosen. I need to completely realign who you do business with. And I think a couple of sessions people have said, you know, if I'm going to go to collaboration now, because that's one of the things. Collaboration is so overrated. It is so overrated, and I'm going to get it very straight to you. Collaboration only works with rules and mechanisms to control it, and this is the reason. There is a fantastic book, I absolutely recommend it wholeheartedly, it's a life-changing book for me, called The Chimp Paradox. The Chimp Paradox explains how your basic brain in the middle and your frontal cortex argue with one another continuously. Your emotional brain, your logical brain. The Chimp Paradox explains why you behave in certain ways. If somebody's behaving badly, it's normally because there's fears, the chimp is, having a go. Exercise your chimp. There is only one real thing where your chimp and your human brain, your ancient brain and your new brain, actually coincide, and that is the chimp wants a troop. The chimp wants friends, it wants a troop around them they can trust and they can rely on, so it wants to extend the troop as wide as possible. The human is more logical and says, if I collaborate with these people, I will have more trade, I will have more food resources over longer periods of time, I will have more people to rely on. So your human and your chimp are fighting for collaboration. The answer is, though, that often collaboration fails. Business partnerships fail. Relationships fail. You have to do due diligence before you collaborate. Do not buy into the collaboration myth. It is not all good. Find out why somebody wants to do things. What is their chimp up to? And all those things. So, collaboration is a key part to get right. And I think in the keynote speech we just heard, having that discernment to understand who you want to do business with, who you don't, and that comes from here and knowing your true values of what type of business and what type of organisation you want to work with. Do not choose a job, choose a boss. Do not, So we have to want to do it is a key part, and so here we are onto design thinking. So this is the model, and all of a sudden, hopefully somebody in the room is going, is that it? Right? And that's the beauty of it. It works everywhere, and yet is fundamentally flawed because it works nowhere unless you guide it. Just like all successful models, they're quite generic, and so they work in all spaces and also can fail in all spaces. I'm going to give you an example of failure. I am not IKEA. Nokia, sorry, name escaped. Nokia. Nokia spent years, and I know this because I've been told. Nokia spent years here and here, defining the problem, and we'll come to that in a minute, and ideating. There's some great videos of some guy playing with molten metal, sort of living under a table in the Nokia World Labs, right? All the while, Apple were actually building some stuff that worked. So Nokia deserved to fail, in my opinion. It jumped straight from everything into ideation. It saw itself as a creative organisation. We're all creative. Fantastic, well done. Some really nice metal structures came out of that fantastic work. What didn't come out was anything revolutionary. What came out was almost an identical sort of copy of the Apple iOS software. So it truly, truly failed. So the first thing we're going to concentrate today, because we don't have time to go through the whole model, but the principle of the model is this. Understand your customer, deeply, deeply understand your customer, and the key word I want you to take away from today is stories. Listen to their stories, because the stories are what give you the human element. We'll come on to that. Then we define the project, the problem. There's two levels to this. I'm going to touch on them in quite a lot of detail, but if you're writing stuff down, which many people seem to do, there's something called the 5 whys, and then there's something called, which we call Teach Sleep G, which I'll come on to, there's a slide on it. And we're going to talk about empathy maps with people. And I'm hoping after this you will go into somewhere like Starbucks, you will look at somebody, don't get arrested. But I want you to start playing with putting your mindset into other people's lives. As you're interacting with your bank manager, your kid's teacher, whatever, try and be them. Try and empathize deeply with what people are up to, what they're thinking, how they're feeling. That gives you that insight as to why people are doing things, why people want things in certain ways. What we then do is we ideate, we brainstorm, and there's lots of things like that. There's something called body storming, where people go out and it's a bit like actors who actually live. They get, you live, dress, be, and act as your customer to find out what it really feels like. But there's ideation. Then what we do is we prototype. So a lot of you will understand prototyping, minimal viable product with software, all those things. Doing it on a cheap, easy, quick way to just get some feedback. There's nothing better than real world feedback. I've built enough web software as service applications to know that even your best users, 10 minutes left, even your best users won't tell you when something major has failed. They'll just skip over it. You need to know what's going on with your customer at a deep, deep level. So we prototype as cheaply as possible as you can. We test and test and test, and then we're back in. So we're going to concentrate on empathizing and defining. This is available online. There's hundreds of these. If you just type empathy map and click on images on Google, you'll see one of these. But basically, what we're doing is we're starting to create a story about somebody, an avatar. Your customer is real. So we want to know how all the basic stuff. What do they hear? What do they feel? Who are they influenced by? What are they seeing in their environment? How are they going about their daily lives? What do they do? So this is a standard thing. As I say, it's online. There are lots of different versions of this. Try and find even a picture you feel represents your customer, the person using the software, whoever it is. Try and draw them, or write the characteristics down. So this is what we call Teach Sleep G. This is the bit that makes me look clever in front of clients. In the back of my head, I have these questions. How does that feel to the customer? How aspirational are they? What are their aspirations? What technology is involved? So this is derived from, if anybody's done any standard marketing, your PEST and your SLEP, social, legal, economical, political and technological and environmental. But we've pumped in a few others because actually, in real life, and there is a difference, chronological issues. People feel time pressured, they behave differently, right? Past and future behaviours, we can get onto this, but basically the tail does wag the dog with most people. I mean, you could switch off your life like that and move to Mongolia, but you don't. And the reason is because your past experiences, your past life, your past relationships affect who you are now today. What's happening with your customer with this? So this little thing in the back of my mind says, keeps me on track, keeps me asking good questions. And then we have something called A, assumptions. If anybody is into startup, there's a great book called The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. It is all about assumptions. Underneath the body of huge amounts of examples that he puts in the text, it's all about assumptions. When you're saying something about your customer, are you assuming it? Do you know it really, for real, or is that just the way it's always been thought about? So stereotypes, assumptions need to be routed out. Just get rid of them. Basically, that bit is probably more important than anything else. So many bits of software and bits of kit are developed because somebody assumed that somebody behaves in a certain way. Okay, so we want to get rid of all that. Then we get into defining. I'm going to skip that. We create a point of view about our user. We use empathetic language and we use stories. So I think these videos are going to be available, so hopefully we can do it. But the user needs to do something because something happened. I'm going to quickly show you. Right, so example one. So instead of somebody just saying, oh look, our customer goes to airports and she's got some kids, right? She's traveling, she's harried, stressed, a bit under pressure. A mother of 3, she needs to keep track of her children because the airport feels out of control and full of unknowns. Now that's how you feel if you've got 3 kids, going on your own through Heathrow or something. So that instantly gives you a bit more of a feeling towards that person and empathy, rather than just, well, who's our target audience? Right, well, it's a woman, 3 kids, probably traveling. That's marketing, horrible stuff. This is all about customers really, really feeling it. So we can then extend it. She's nervous because kids are bored, and so we're starting to find out why, and that brings us on to our 5 whys in a second. So this is a real world example. They wanted to do healthy food to teenagers, and basically instead of a teenage girl needs more nutritious food because vitamins are vital to good health, so what? They already knew that. We need to say a teenage girl with a bleak outlook needs to feel more socially accepted when eating healthy food because in her hood a social risk is more dangerous than a health risk. That is the exact text from IDEO. This is a project they worked on. And this then gives you a much better feeling towards that child. 5 minutes? Okay. We're going to get onto the 5 whys. If anything you take away today, it's the 5 whys. Okay. So, this is a real world example. The UK's National Health Service Improvement. So what we're doing is getting to the root of the problem. If we don't understand the problem, there is no point coming up with crazy ideas with sticky notes on a whiteboard. Waste of time. So the patient was late in theatre. Why? There was a long wait for the trolley. Why? The replacement trolley had to be found. Why? The original trolley safety rail was worn and had eventually broken. Why? It had not been regularly checked for wear. Why? We do not have an equipment maintenance schedule. Boom, that's the real reason, guys. We've got no maintenance schedule. What happened to the maintenance schedule? Now, I would take that a step further. Let's go. Why do we not have an equipment maintenance schedule? For crying out loud, we're a hospital, right? Because Bob is a dreadful manager who's been off sick for 5 months. Oh, why? Well, because budget cuts meant he was doing the work of 2 people and it was too much for him. So now we've gone up from a really practical, bog standard, that this trolley hasn't got a handle, really up to a strategic management issue. So every time you ask why, you almost go up a sort of higher level of management. It's not, so then you're trying to have to promote that problem higher up the food scale, as it were, to get it solved properly. But at least we can start with somehow getting some kind of structure in place. So, the other thing I spoke to earlier is a lot of people don't care about your problem. So you need to define your problem first, maybe sit in a dark room, think about it, get it defined. How big a problem is it really? Is it profitable to attempt to solve it? There is no point spending huge amounts of time and energy solving a problem that really isn't that big a problem. Or can you outsource it? Can you give it to some kids for a school project? If it's that small. So we can only ideate, we can only come up with ideas when we know what our problem is. So that's the key thing. You have to want to solve the problem, you have to know what it is. So collaboration, I've touched on, is a tricky beast. And there is what's called, my brain has forgotten it. It's a U-bend. It's a U-bend of doom. And when you enter into a relationship, any relationship, go down the U-bend of doom. Because you must assume all those nasty factors first. Iron them out, get them sorted, ask people why they want to get involved, why are you interested in working with me, what do you want to get out of it, what are your priorities? I worked with somebody, his biggest priority was his family. I want to work an 80-hour week. He's not going to work an 80-hour week. I'm going to be doing 96 hours, making up for his. All right, this is a big project. We're both going to have to put a shed load of time into this. The family is his biggest thing. So then I'm saying to him, so really, if push comes to shove, are you really going to do 80-hour week? Okay, fine. We'll walk away. We'll walk away. He's not going to deliver that because he wants to be at home with his family, which, by the way, is a very good reason to not do it. Okay, but or we can find a third person and who can maybe deliver some of it, and he waters down his share of the take or something. There's always solutions, but it wasn't just going to be a me and him. So monkey brain, human brain, really, really important. Okay. And lastly, when it comes to solving problems, I've actually got through my slides. I'm really chuffed. So when it comes to problems, I want you to remember Jimi Hendrix. Okay. This or Bruce Lee. Jimi Hendrix is good though, but Bruce Lee as well. Be authentic, be yourself, be the person you genuinely want to be, and do not let others express to you how it should be. And when I say that, when you're in the middle of solving problems with people get very passionate, and you're trying to achieve an outcome. So it's really important at those passionate times in difficult problems, often affecting, if you're working in government or anything, if you're affecting people's lives, just make sure that you always go back to your beliefs, your roots, your values, and be who you want to be. And another classic human problem is we feel we have to commit, we feel we have to be involved. But if it's really, really wrong, walk away. Because there's more important things to be getting on with. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions? We need a microphone for that man there.
Looking at the topic, which is inspiring businesses to embrace a culture of creativity and disruption.
Mm-hmm.
At what point is it easier for an organization to deviate from a preconception, or possibly the idea has been working? For example, let me use Tesco, for example.
Yep.
The strategic undertone for Tesco is be everywhere.
Yeah.
Sell everything.
Absolutely. Apart from our mind.
To everyone.
Yeah.
Those were the strategic. Before you break it further that is at the top end of their strategy.
Yeah.
Tesco want to sell everything to everyone.
Yeah.
And in doing so, when you want to sell to everyone, we all have different we have the rich, we have the mid. So
Yep.
the value comes in, the value product, which is the Tesco value
Yep.
product comes in. Now, because they want to be everywhere, at some point, they
Yeah.
started venturing outside their scope. And at the end of the day, there was a lot of loss
Yeah.
from South Korea, US is not making it.
Mhm.
And then I also look at BlackBerry, for example, as well as part of the example.
Yep, good example.
About 8-9 years ago, there was a software. I've tried to remember it, but
Yeah.
on BlackBerry, I think it was on BlackBerry 9800. There was this software that when you don't have a network provider which you use on your phone,
Yep.
and you call, there is this software that routes your call via Wi-Fi, and you could, but they never developed to that level where now you can do that. Seemingly technology is what most of the, and then they hang on to the BBM, which was like just pay. And I was saying to people then, I shared it in the class before that.
Okay.
They focus more on what they want to have now until
Yeah.
WhatsApp came in and then.
Yes. Let me try and answer your three questions in there before everyone leaves. So I would say that when is it time to start this process? There is only now. You should be constantly doing customer research, insightful work, empathy mapping your customers, and also classic from Coca-Cola. These are not my customers. I will go and find other customers in other things. So you can do what's called pivoting and expansion and all those things. So when should you be doing the first half? Always. When you should implement it, I would suggest when it's right for the customer. So the challenge is if you don't fully understand your customer, which BlackBerry didn't, and also they were actually ahead of the game with that app. So they've got the app, but they didn't understand their marketplace. They needed to sit there, put it in a drawer and wait. Just like Amazon have not entered the grocery market until now. They've sat there, they've watched everybody else do it, they've learned, they've looked, they've seen what's going on. They didn't understand that marketplace fully. They've been monitoring. Now, boom, they will clean up because they've waited. So it's not always great to innovate. Innovation is always good. It's not. The challenge is a human challenge and not a scientific challenge, and that's what I'm saying to you here. The value in the room will be having that understanding, that deep understanding in you, learning that in order to make those senior management decisions, to make that decision to invest in that new thing, or to make that decision to not go ahead is the tricky bit, and understanding the potential of customers. Just on the Coca-Cola thing, the story behind that is that the whole Pepsi-Cola thing, Coca-Cola went, but we don't see our competitors as just cola. We want to now, so it's just somebody having a drink. So tea, water, blah, blah, blah. So Coca-Cola own Innocent Smoothies. They own Danone or somebody else. I don't know who they are, all who's there. So what they did is so that is a management ability to see above the data, helicopter view down. Think about who are my customers. If you're empathizing with just the people you've always empathized with, that's great, you know them really deeply, but actually, are there other people you should be empathizing with? So I think that's what I'm trying to say is keep opening the box, keep questioning yourselves, be humble. I think was a great thing that came from the keynote, because as soon as you get arrogant enough to think you know what you're doing, like Nokia, you fall. So, is there any other?
Thank you very much.